Can a 4,000-year-old Babylonian secret actually solve your modern habit of living paycheck to paycheck? Well, you might be surprised to know that some of today's most viral, trending financial advice originally came from an ancient civilization, and a mapmaker from the 1920s. I know, it sounds absolutely unbelievable, but it's completely true. We always tend to think of modern finance as this incredibly complex, tangled web of banking apps, stock tickers, and credit scores. But what if the real secret to escaping the rat race literally hasn't changed in 4 millennia?
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here with us today. Okay, we're going to jump right in and unpack George S. Clason's absolute powerhouse of a personal finance classic, The Richest Man in Babylon. And listen, this isn't just a basic book review. We are going to extract the absolute core of this philosophy, see how it stacks up against modern money advice, and most importantly, show you exactly how you can start applying it to your own life today.
And hey, since the author was quite literally a map maker, here is our map for today's journey. 1. The Mapmaker's Ancient Parables. 2. Rules of the Richest Man. 3. The 5 Laws of Gold. 4. Babylon versus Rich Dad. And finally, 5. Ancient Rules, Modern Strategies. All right, let's get into Section 1. The Mapmaker's Ancient Parables.
So George S. Clason was born back in 1874 in Missouri. And, he didn't actually start out as some big financial guru. He was a map maker. His company pumped out some of the very first road atlases in the U.S. and Canada. But when the Great Depression started wiping out smaller publishers, he had to pivot. In the 1920s, he started writing these incredibly simple, short financial pamphlets. Banks and insurance companies actually started handing them out directly to their customers. They caught on like wildfire. They were so wildly popular that by 1926, they were compiled into the classic book we're talking about today.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth did he choose the setting of ancient Babylon? Well, for one, at its absolute height, it was the wealthiest city in the world. But more importantly, by dropping his characters 4,000 years in the past, Clason deliberately stripped away all of our modern financial crutches and, honestly, our excuses. There's no algorithms to blame, no credit cards to max out, no complex derivatives. It literally forces us to focus on the universal choices every single human faces: earning, spending, and saving.
Moving right along to Section 2, Rules of the Richest Man.
We get these massive lessons through a character named Arkad. He's a humble scribe who basically went out, learned the secrets of the wealthy, and eventually became the richest man in Babylon. He passes down what he calls the 7 cures for a lean purse. First up, start thy purse to fattening, which just means save your money. Second, control thy expenditures. And I want you to really think about this right now. Is lifestyle creep stealing your wealth? Because Clason warns us that our necessary expenses are always going to grow to match our income unless we actively put a stop to it. Then he tells us to make our gold multiply, guard it from loss, own our own homes, ensure a future income, and finally improve our ability to earn by mastering our craft. The whole takeaway here, wealth isn't about the cash you have in your pocket today, it's about building a reliable, ongoing stream of income.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 5 Laws of Gold.
Okay, so you've cured your lean purse, but how do you keep that wealth? Enter the 5 Laws of Gold. Step 1 is the absolute bedrock. Save at least 1/10, so 10% of your earnings. Steps 2 and 3 are all about putting that money to work safely under the protection of wise counsel. Essentially, don't take financial advice from amateurs. You wouldn't ask a bricklayer about jewels, right? But steps 4 and 5? Man, this is where so many people still fail today. Invest only in familiar purposes and avoid get-rich-quick tricksters. Clason is super strict about this. Do not force your money into impossible earnings. Like he says, it's way better to have a little caution than a huge regret.
Let's transition to Section 4, Babylon v. Rich Dad.
So how does a book from the 1920s about ancient history hold up against modern financial heavyweights? Well, let's take a look at a really interesting debate happening on literature forums like Good Novel, objectively comparing Clason's work to Robert Kiyosaki's massive hit Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's kind of like comparing the philosophical sage with the modern wealth coach. Babylon leans heavy on storytelling and parables. It's very calm, traditional, and totally focused on the slow, steady discipline of saving and living below your means. Rich Dad, on the other hand, is super high energy. It uses real-life anecdotes to push a very pragmatic shift in mindset, aggressively focusing on acquiring assets rather than just traditional saving. Now, neither side is right or wrong here. We're just looking at two highly effective, yet totally different mentoring styles. One is this big wake-up call to break free from the rat race, while the other is this timeless reminder that patience and discipline build absolutely unbreakable foundations.
Finally, Section 5, Ancient Rules, Modern Strategies.
It is time to bridge the gap. Let's translate these 1920s parables into highly actionable 21st century strategies. The financial firm Experian actually provides a fantastic modern translation of these old texts. When Arkad tells us to start thy purse to fattening, Experian translates that bluntly to pay yourself first. Treat your savings like a mandatory bill you owe to your future self and pay it before anything else. Control thy expenditures? That just means live within your means. Make thy dwelling a profitable investment becomes the classic modern advice to own your home and build equity. Honestly, it's amazing to see how perfectly all that archaic thee and thou language maps onto the exact same advice financial advisors are handing out today.
So what does the math actually look like in practice? Beach House Wealth Management points to the 10-20-70 rule, which perfectly echoes Clason's ancient parables. Here is your modern blueprint. Save 10% of what you make for yourself. Take 20% and use it to aggressively pay down your debts, or if you're debt-free, invest it. Then live on the remaining 70%. When you automate this, say routing that 10% straight into a high-yield savings account the second you get paid, discipline just becomes your default setting. If you follow this math without letting your emotions get in the way, money accrues surprisingly fast, and debts just disappear.
And that brings us to the ultimate secret ingredient. As M&A Investments points out in their review of the book, even though the characters in ancient Babylon had vastly different backgrounds and faced completely different hardships, they all shared one defining trait: consistency. The crazy success Arkad achieved had nothing to do with complex trading strategies or timing the market perfectly. It was simply because he applied basic rules, and he did it consistently. And hey, this applies to way more than just your bank account. Just like capital, your skills compound. Spending just 10% of your daily time learning, reading, or improving your craft, that's an investment that's going to yield massive, massive returns over your lifetime.
Which leaves us with this incredibly powerful thought from George S. Clason. Wealth is the fruit of steady habits, not perfect timing. Far too often, we just sit around waiting for the perfect salary, the perfect housing market, or the right time to start taking our finances seriously. But the mapmaker from the 1920s, writing about a city from 4,000 years ago, knew the absolute truth. There is no perfect time. There are only steady habits. So I'm going to leave you with one final question to chew on today. Are you ready to stop waiting for perfect timing and start building your steady habits today?